a very unique day, one of my favorite days. Walk around the Rova like it's our home, welcoming people to our house, and very, very miragesh. Everywhere you go, there are groups of chevra singing. At some stage, it will get a bit quieter in the Rova because everyone will go out in order to come back. And for almost about 35, 36 years now, there has been I often feel that Yom Yerushalayim is what everyone expected Yom HaAtzmaut to be. But it happens on Yom Yerushalayim because essentially the only people who run the show on Yom Yerushalayim are the religious Zionists. And therefore it's exactly what we want it to be. And this flag dance, which starts as indifferent, it's separate, right? Boys start in one place, girls start in another. And there is a lot of dancing before we start, and it's an incredible atmosphere. It's really, really something not to be missed in any way. And then finishing off at the Kotel, later on there'll be bands playing at the Kotel until quite late in the evening. It really is a massive chagiga, which is what Jerusalem deserves. So, you have to start with a song. Everyone got the sheets? Malen, do you have the sheets? Are you on Zoom? Charlie, do you have a sheet yet? It's Charlie's mum. This is Charlie. So let's start this week's parasha, Parashat Bamidbar. איש על דגלו באותות לבית אבותם יחנו בני ישראל מנגד סביב לאוהל מועד יחנו. Each tribe has a flag. And then we have groups of tribes that have flags as well. Everything is around the Mishkan. Everything is around the Ohel Moed. So we have two flags that represent two very different things. We have Degel Israel, and we have Degel Yerushalayim. Two different flags. Let's think about Degel Israel. And if you look at the top of the page, connected to Sfirat HaOmer. In between Pesach and Shavuot, we have two massive foundation stones in contemporary Judaism. We have Yom HaAtzmaut and we have Yom Yerushalayim. Yom HaAtzmaut falls on Hei B'Iyar, which in Sfirot, if you're doing Sfirot each day of the Omer, is Yesod Sheba Tiferet. It's Tiferet of Am Yisrael, the glory of Am Yisrael, the combination of Ahava and Yira, but the Yesod, the foundation stone. It's Pesach. Yom HaAtzmaut goes with Pesach. It's Tekah b'shofar gadol lecherutenu. It is blowing the shofar of our redemption, liberation from the terrible Yabeshet of Europe. What is the point of a flag? So in this week's parasha, we have two comments. We have first of all the comment of the Kli Yakar. And the Kli Yakar says as follows: "V'hakarov elai lomar she'ikar choshkam she'Yisrael haya laharot lechol ha'amim ki shem Hashem nikra lehem v'yiru mehem." The flag is not for us; it's for the people of the world to see, where we carry the name of God. We are ambassadors of Selem Elokim. The flag represents us around the world. It is our flag. They want to burn it, they can burn it, but they won't get rid of it. We'll wave it and we'll keep waving it. And for years we didn't have a flag. And then Adolf Hitler thought that he would put a flag on our arm in the Warsaw Ghetto, a white cloth with a Magen David on it. There's no greater sign of victory than taking that white cloth off your arm and waving it in the air as a flag, as an independent symbol of our people, for the world to see, for the world to know that we exist, who we are, Kol Dodi Dofek. So the Kli Yakar says the flag's for other people, it's not for me. The other people know that we are a state, we're not Eretz Yisrael, we are Medinat Yisrael. We are a state, not simply a land. When in that statement where people say Eretz Yisrael, they almost deny the sacrifice of our soldiers, of our people who live here. It's not just Eretz Yisrael, it's Medinat Yisrael, it's a state of Israel, it's an independent state in the world whose flag flies and shows the world everywhere, as they did in Fifth Avenue. And yesterday, I think in Toronto, someone showed me a picture of the streets of Toronto full of, I think it's true, right? I was at a wedding last night of a student's daughter from the year of 1998, the student. We had a little reunion there, which is long before I was born, obviously, but I was there anyway. And someone showed me at the, he didn't want to speak about Poland, so he showed me a picture of Toronto full of Israeli flags. So it's for other people should know that we'll wave the flag, and it's a notion for other people. But see what the Malbim says. The Malbim says, "Va'amar ish al diglo ba'oto leveit avotam, רוצה לומר שכל אחד היה לו דגל מיוחד וכל דגל היה לו אות מיוחד מתייחס לבית אבותם." The Malbim says the degel is for him, it's for you, it's not just for other people. Every single thing we do in our lives has a number of different facets to it. Sometimes the message is for other people, sometimes the message is for us. And on this occasion, through the Kli Yakar and the Malbim, the message is for both. We have that flag, we wave that flag, and we wave that flag to show our independence, to show who we are, our pride in who we are, but we need to wave it for ourselves. We need to wave it for ourselves wherever you happen to be. On campus, your bedroom should on one wall have obviously a picture of myself, Rav Sasson, Dr. Yocheved, and okay, you can have a star out as well if you want. Jeremy, whole wall for Jeremy, and the other has a flag on it, right? Because it's for you. It's to remember who you are, where you belong. And we are celebrating today. We have a lot of Hakarat Hatov for veterans, but we're celebrating Yom Yerushalayim. That's our people, that's our day, it's our city. It's our city, a city that we have always honored and respected other religions. We never urinated in mosques, we never burnt them down, we never defecated in churches. We've always shown incredible respect for every other nation, every other faith, and we are the ones responsible for this city. So that there are two elements to the flag. Happened on one occasion. I get some hate mail every so often, and someone listened to my shiur. Someone once listened to my shiur in Malaysia. I'm not sure why, and I don't know what they got from the shiur, unless it was a Beit Chabad or something. I don't know why someone in Malaysia would be listening to my shiur. It just said on the contact, the one from Malaysia watched it. And someone wrote to me, and he said, "This is such a nonsense. Your flag," he said. He said, "Your flag is Chiloni in totality. It has nothing to do with Judaism, and it's shtuyor." So I wrote back to the gentleman and I said, "You don't. Come, hello. Hi. Come." I wrote back to the gentleman and I said, "You don't have to agree with the ideology, but at least get your facts right." So have a look at the origins of the Israeli flag. Rav Shrak once wrote a book about this. And have a look at the origins of the Israeli flag. David Wolfson. Have you ever heard of Wolfson, ladies? You go there for your medical stuff, right? Wolfson. So David Wolfson, it's named after someone. And David Wolfson was the president of the Histadrut HaTzionit in 1897. The first Zionist get-together in Basel. And he writes as follows in his diary: "B'fekudat manhigenu Herzl, bati leBasel." Under the orders of Herzl, I arrived in Basel. "Kedei la'asot et kol ha'achanot leKongress Harishon," to prepare everything for the first Jewish Congress, the first Zionist Congress. "Bein ha'sheilot harabot she'esikuni az hayta achat." There was one question that bothered us then. "Be'ezeh degel nekashet ha'olam?" What's our flag? What is our flag? What is the Zionist flag? Mahem Tzva'av, what will be the colors of our flag? Hey Degel Eilana, we didn't have a flag. After 2,000 years of Galut, we didn't have a flag. So what's the flag to be? Harayon hazeh hichivani ma'od, and this bothered me enormously. Sarich lisod Degel, I had to create a flag. And what colors will I choose for our flag? And this is where the Israeli flag comes from. Lavan kachol, it should be blue and white, like a talit, like tzitzit that are blue and white, far from chiloni, like techelet and lavan. The flag should be blue and white, like the tzitzit we wear. It's amazing how much ignorance there is. This guy wrote to me, it's a Chiloni idea, it's far from being Chiloni. The flag is like a talit that we wear when we daven. Talit zo hi simleinu. The talit is our symbol. It's always been our symbol. A Jew wearing a talit. Notzina et talit min altikar. We will take the talit out of the bag, and we will show it to ourselves and to the nations. Hizmanti as degel kachol lavan. So I chose a degel which would be blue and white. Umagen David metzuya alav. And there'll be a Magen David on it. But where does the Magen David come from? So have a look at the tshuva of Rav Moshe Feinstein. Someone wrote a question to Rav Moshe Feinstein quite a while ago, and they asked him, should they not take the cover of the ark off the ark in Shul because it has a Magen David, and that's a Zionist sign. Now people are so screwy. I mean, that's the shaila that they wrote to Rav Moshe. So we should take the parochet off because it has a Magen David, and a Magen David is a Zionist symbol, and it shouldn't be in Shul. That was the question they asked Rav Moshe Feinstein. So Rav Moshe Feinstein answers. Hinei kafi sheyadu hazeh me'ot be'igrot Moshe. Hinei kafi sheyadu hazeh me'ot b'shanim שעשו סיור מגן דוד על פרחות ועל מעילים ומטפחות. The Magen David has been on Sifrei Torah, it's been on Aron Kodesh for hundreds, thousands of years. ולא היה מי שיעיר על זה, no one ever complained about it. ואף שאין לנו מקור צורת המגן דוד, and even though we don't have a makor, a source for the Magen David, אין בזה שום קפדה, there's no problem with this at all. וגם יש בזה עניין, on the contrary, there is something here, להזכיר השם יתברך, מלך למעלה ולמטה ולכל דלת רוחות, that God is everywhere, God is up and down and all around. So if you put the words of David Wolfson together with Rav Moshe Feinstein, we have a flag of Israel, which is our flag. It's my flag. Someone asked me why I'm not with a flag, but I am a flag. I am a flag and a prophecy and a lunatic, but I am a flag. And the flag is blue and white because it's a talit. And the Magen David in the middle is a symbol that God is everywhere. Nothing more Jewish than the flag of Israel. And have a look at this. People who are more Lithuanian would probably laugh at me and say there shouldn't be any emotion here, and what are you talking about? I shake when I see this flag. Mama shake when I see this flag, with enthusiasm, with love. And Rav Soloveitchik, who is Lithuanian par excellence, writes about the flag. Im tishaluni eich ani kiyudi talmudi. How do I, as a Talmudic Jew, mabit al degel Medina Yisrael? How do I look at the flag of Israel? V'im yesh lo bichlal erech hilchati, and is there any halachic value to the flag of Israel? I was in an airport once in Poland, and one of the girls had the flag on her back, wearing the flag, and someone came and told her off. He said, "This is a shmata, you don't wear it like a shmata." I told her she could afterwards, but he was very, very mitragesh. He said, "This is like, you don't just, this is holy, the flag is holy." So see what Rav Soloveitchik writes? You can, but... אענה לכם פשוט, אינני גורס בכלל מקסם של דגל וסמלים טקסיים כמותו. I don't get excited about flags. I don't get excited about these things. היהדות שוללת פולחן עצמיים גשמיים. Judaism doesn't want us to create media. We want to speak directly to God. Baram, however, אל נא נתעלם מדין בשולחן ערוך. We should not forget the halacha in the Shulchan Aruch. כי הרוג שנהרג בידי עקום, קוברים אותם bivgadav. A person who is murdered is buried in their clothes. We buried many of these people after October the 7th. I saw many of these people after October the 7th in their clothes and got them ready for kavura. And the purpose is you don't do a tahara on someone who is murdered. Kedei sheyireh damo v'yikom. God will see the blood and will avenge us. A person's buried the way they're killed. You clean them up so that the blood doesn't come through on the because we don't generally bury in coffins. שנאמר וניקייתי דמם לא ניקייתי. במילים אחרות, in other words, בגדי יהודים מקבלים קדושה מסוימת כשהם מוקטמים בדם קדוש. Jewish clothes gain a certain kedusha when they are drenched in Jewish blood. והדברים קל וחומר, Rav Soloveitchik says it's a קל וחומר, ben beno shel קל וחומר, it's the greatest קל וחומר, לדגל הכחול לבן, to the blue and white flag. שטבול בדמם של אלפי צעירים יהודים, that is drenched in the blood of thousands of Jewish soldiers, of Jewish terror victims, דתיים ולא דתיים, from and not from, שנפלו במלחמת השחרור והגנת על הארץ והיישוב. So even though it's not his thing, Rav Soloveitchik relates to the kedusha of the flag because of what it represents, and because what people have done for the flag of Israel and what it represents to all of us. We have to be very careful not to take things for granted. None of us in this room were really around when there wasn't a state of Israel. And very few of us were around when there was no Jerusalem. We don't know what it is to be Jewish without a country. And we don't know what it is to be Jewish without Jerusalem. I vaguely remember I was 1 year old, but I don't really remember. My whole life is Jerusalem. You're going to hear a person at lunch who liberated Jerusalem. I've always felt that had I been him, it would have really been the end of my life. I can't see anything that can top liberating Jerusalem. I don't know. If I was storming Har HaBayit as a paratrooper, I would just die of simcha. I can't think of anything greater. You know, not being a regular rabbi and being a bit not of a stereotype in that way. When people ask me, you know, that question, who would you want to be if you were one of the famous people? So you'd expect a serious person to say Avraham Avinu, Moshe Rabbeinu, but I would like to be a paratrooper liberating the Kotel. I think that would be the most fantastic thing. I know a few of these people. I think it's the most fulfilling Jewish reality for someone to have stormed. You know, when we used to do the Sivuv Sha'arim on Yom Yerushalayim at night, what you did last night, we used to go through Lions Gate, like the paratroopers. We mamish went through Lions Gate, singing, waving flags, and then we would come into the shul and we'd daven Mariv in the shul. And the police at some stage asked us not to do it, and then we went to the top of Har HaZeitim, and we said, walk all the way to the top of Har HaZeitim and daven Mariv at the top of Har HaZeitim, and then the police asked us not to do that as well. So what you did last night is also great, but going through Lions Gate is, wow. It's the most fantastic thing. You just follow. You went to the corner of the paratroopers, right? And you probably sang your Shalom Shazalav there. Did you get that far up to the corner? I don't know when you went that far. It's a bit further up from here, David. And there's a memorial there. And it's such an incredible thing. And the flag is totally soaking with Jewish blood. And that makes it holy for what it represents. That's Degel Israel. What's Degel Yerushalayim? What's Yom Yerushalayim? You can have a country, and the country can represent something, but there's something missing in that country. Sometimes you go to a shopping centre and there's a car in the shopping centre, and you think, why don't I just get in the car and drive it out? I've always assumed there's no motor in the car because they don't want people to get in the car. It's dangerous to leave a car if someone can somehow rig the wires and start driving it around and run over people. So a car can look like a car, but if it hasn't got a motor, it's no car. So you can have a country. Incredibly enough, Jerusalem was in our hands before 1948. You know that. You know that the Rova, there was a Jewish community in the Rova before 1948. You're going to hear about that also when Rabbanit Dana's father talks. So there was a Jewish presence, and we lost. The Rova fell in 1948, and for 19 years we didn't have Yerushalayim, this part of Yerushalayim. We didn't have Hebron, Gush Etzion. We didn't have any of these areas. By the way, just if you're going to college, you should be aware, in all of those years there was still terrorism. Even when we didn't live in our land, even when we weren't in Yehuda and Shomron, there were still terrorists. It's not because of Yehuda and Shomron. It's not because of Jerusalem. They've been killing us since time immemorial. It's got nothing to do with Yehuda and Shomron. There was terrorism before 1967. It's not like we were living in peace until the Six-Day War broke out. The Six-Day War broke out. We weren't living in peace. And I don't know whether you know this, but I hope someone's told you this. If not, I'm telling you now. That when war broke out in 1967, David Ben-Gurion, Levi Eshkol sent a message to the king of Jordan, said, don't get involved. You don't shoot, we won't shoot. We won't shoot, we won't get involved. But he decided to go to war, and we captured Jerusalem. And I've told you before, we captured Hebron through one man and one man only. Rav Gorin. Rav Gorin got in a jeep and he drove past the front lines, didn't realize it. He went to Hebron. They came out of Hebron waving white flags. They surrendered Hebron to Rav Gorin, to the chief rabbi of Israel, captured Hebron. That's what happened. The Six-Day War is a miracle beyond miracles. It's just every single part of the Six-Day War is just incredible. When I was younger, I was doing Pulot for Bnei Akiva, and I found in a box back home in England a whole collection of newspapers that my parents had collected from 1967, before the war. So I read the newspapers in the run-up to the war. They were talking about Holocaust in Israel. The joke in Israel was, last one out, turn off the lights. They had ships in Haifa ready to evacuate children. And after 3 hours of the first day, the war was over. We destroyed the Egyptian Air Force in 3 hours when they were on red alert. And do you know how that happened? How did our Air Force fly into Egypt and destroy their Air Force without them even shooting at us? On that morning, these are facts, on that morning, an Egyptian minister decided he wanted to fly over the troops, the Egyptian troops, and see what was going on. So they turned off the radar, so they wouldn't shoot him down by accident. The thing is, we didn't know they turned off the radar. At the moment he went into the air, we flew into the air without any knowledge that he was flying, and their radars were off and they didn't see our planes, and we destroyed the Egyptian Air Force. You can't win a war without an Air Force. What are you going to say? You're not going to say Hallel? You're not going to say Hallel? It makes the plague of frogs look like a drop in the ocean. That's for you, Tani. It makes it's crazy. They didn't know. They just flew over. The radars were off. Incredible. Well, what is Yerushalayim? Yom Ha'atzmaut. Yom Ha'atzmaut gives us the country, but the country needs tochen. The country needs Degel Yerushalayim. Not just Degel Yisrael, we need Degel Yerushalayim. So what is Yerushalayim? What does Yerushalayim stand for? Have a look at this Meshech Chochmah. Gevaldik Meshech Chochmah. You dance with this Meshech Chochmah all the way to the Kotel. You dance with this Meshech Chochmah, a flag in one hand, Meshech Chochmah in the other, and people will say, what are you doing? You don't know the Meshech Chochmah? You don't know the Meshech Chochmah? No. The famous Meshech Chochmah. Rav Sussman once told me, whenever a teacher says the famous, it means it's the one they know. So it's the famous Meshech Chochmah. Look at this Meshech Chochmah, it's Gevaldik. Bamidrash, listen to this Midrash. You tell me if you've seen this Midrash. If you've seen this Midrash before, I'll get you extra piece at lunch. Bamidrash Breishim, well, maybe two. Bamidrash Rabbah, Shem, Kara Oto Shalem. Shem called Jerusalem Shalem. Bit older than their grandma, Shem. He's a bit older than their grandma. Not 75 years old. 3,500 years old, this is our country. Their grandmas are only 70. Shem Karato Shalem. Shem called it Shalem. He called Jerusalem Shalem. Shene'emar Melchizedek Melech Shalem. Avram, at the Akedah, doesn't call Jerusalem Shalem. He calls it Yira'eh, a place of fear, where you see God. Shene'emar v'yikra Abraham Shem ha'makom Hashem Yira'eh. So what does God say? There's a machlokah here between Shem and Abraham. Is it meant to be called Shalem or Yira'eh? Look at this Midrash. This is the source. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu koreani oto Yira'eh. If I call it Yira'eh like Abraham wants. Shem, Adam Sadiq, Mitraim, Shem will be offended. V'im koreani oto Shalem. And if I call it Shalem, Avram, Adam Sadiq, Mitraim, Avram will be upset. So what am I going to call it? Yira'eh Shalem. Yerushalayim. That is a source. Yira'eh and Shalem. Now see what the Meshech Chochmah does with this. Kamoshi karush nehem Yira'eh Shalem Yerushalayim. V'ha'inyan. Shem haya b'dor hamabul. Shem lived in the time of Dor hamabul. He lived in the time of the flood. Shem Cham v'Yafet, right? Shem is one of the children of Noah. Vaya b'teva v'zanu furnes kol hanivraim sham b'teva. And he was in the teva and he was mefarnes. He made sure all the animals had food, all the fish had food, all of the different animals had food. And the point of being in the teva was to be kind, because that's the reason the world was destroyed. And the whole point of Shem was to be the taken midot. And that's what Shalem is. Shlemut is bein adam lechavero. So what is Yira'eh? Yira'eh is the Akedah, it's Har HaMoriah. That's Ben Adam Lemakom. So what's Yira'eh Shalem? It's Ben Adam Lemakom and Ben Adam Lechavero. It's an all-encompassing city. It's a city that is not just about Ben Adam Lechavero. It's about Ben Adam Lemakom. And I want to tell you something else. And the first time I heard it was last night. I was at a chuppah, and the rabbi at the chuppah, Rav Pini actually, MTA, right, he said it, and very interesting what he said. He said in 1948, when we tried to fight for Jerusalem, Jerusalem's the old city, only the old city, that's Jerusalem. So the Etzel came in from one side, and the Palmach came in from another side. And they were competing, who's going to conquer Jerusalem? And because they were competing and not together, so we lost Jerusalem. In 1967, we all fought together. When you think about Jerusalem, you see it in the words of Rabbi Vital momentarily, when you think about Jerusalem, Jerusalem isn't a place, it is a religious reality. Have a look at the Gemara in Brachot, Daf Lamed Amud Aleph. It's a halacha that you know actually. You know this halacha. One way or the other, you've learned this halacha. Summa, a blind person, or someone who doesn't know where they are, they don't have a campus, they don't have the app that shows you where you are. So when you're davening, you just pray to God. You just have kavanah and pray to God. You're somewhere, you don't know where you are, you can't work out what the direction is, don't mess around for too long, close your eyes and daven to God. If you live in Chutz La'aretz, it's not always east, right? Depends where you live. Israel isn't always east wherever you live, right? But for many people it's east, so you would go east. Wherever you are in the world, you pray towards Israel. If you're in Israel, says the Gemara, you pray towards Jerusalem. If you're in Yerushalayim, then towards the Beit Mikdash. That's why if you're at the Kotel, you wouldn't daven straight, you would daven to your left. That's how you should daven at the Kotel, to your left, because you're facing where the Beit Mikdash stood, not just Habayit, where the Beit Mikdash stood. You turn to your left a bit. And if you're standing in the Beit Mikdash, and if you're by the Beit Mikdash, very, very near the Beit Mikdash, and you can do that today. You can go on Har HaBayit and you can daven there. It's legal. You can daven there. You can do Ishtach Haviyot. I did it there in the winter. You know, just before my daughter's wedding, we went up there. I couldn't stop bowing, up and down, up and down. And then you have to face where the Kodesh HaKodashim is. So I asked myself the question: what does it matter? Why can't the halacha simply say, wherever I am in the world, I pray towards the Kodesh HaKodashim? So I came to the conclusion, it's just my opinion, that the Gemara is telling us there are madrigot. There are religious levels. The lowest religious level is reflected by Chutz La'aretz. It's Chutz La'aretz. You have a level up, which is Eretz Yisrael. You have a level up, which is Yerushalayim. You have a level up, which is Har HaBayit. You have a level up, which is Kodesh HaKodashim. And you have to go according to the levels. And from this Gemara, Mishtamea, that Yerushalayim is a level, it's not just a place. You have to be worthy of Yerushalayim. People always blame Moshe Dayan for giving the keys to Har HaBayit back in 1967. Kanareh, it was meant to be. But let me tell you something about 1967. Whenever there's a fight between Jews, people say it's never been like this before. And I ask people to read history. You don't have to read 2,000 years of history. You can read the last 100 years of history. Something that you don't know, the girls who went to Poland know, because I mentioned it to you, the girls who are going to Poland, you should know. When you talk about the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, there's a whole part of that uprising that no one ever speaks about because everyone in it was killed. It was the uprising of Beitar. Beitar, run by a man called Pesach Frankel, Pavel Frankel, who is mentioned in the Masul HaTorah. They They fought against the Germans. They fought against the Germans to the degree that Jürgen Stroop, in his diaries, which I happen to have, writes that they were the hardest battles, the ones against Beitar. And who's ever heard of Beitar in the Warsaw Ghetto? Until Dr. Moshe Ahrens, rest his soul, wrote a book about it. Who's ever heard of Beitar in the Warsaw Ghetto? All we've ever heard of is Mordechai Nelevich, and Antek, and Svir Lubetkin, and Marek Edelman, all of the left-wing groups. Because you see, the left-wing groups wouldn't fight with Beitar. That's the Jewish people. Never been so bad. In the Warsaw Ghetto, when 400,000 Jews have been gassed in Treblinka, Jews would still not fight together. Hashom Alzeh would not fight with Beitar. And if you think it ended there, it didn't end there. My hero, one of my greatest heroes, was Menachem Begin. I love Menachem Begin. He was my mentor, hero, Prime Minister of Israel, leader of the Irgun, fantastic man, and a mensch. What a mensch. I have a bookmarker in my Chumash, which is a copy. They were going through his books years after he died, and they found a check in his books in the library as a bookmark, a check for 100,000 shekel, which he hadn't checked because he didn't get round to it. He hadn't banked it. He just didn't get round to it. Just money wasn't important. He was an honest, truthful man. And anything to do with him, I grasped when I was younger, and to this day. His speeches, his honesty, everything. His ideology. He was in Siberia, that's how he was saved from the Holocaust. His whole family was killed in Brisk. And he escaped to Warsaw, then to Vilna, and he survived Epshel. And Menachem Begin had a son called Benny Begin, who was a member of Knesset, a Saba Memshalah. One of my finest days in the Midrash was when I brought Benny Begin to speak here. I drove him here because he didn't have a car, Chaver Knesset without a car. I drove him to school and I drove him back. It was the best day in 30 years. Nothing ever topped that day, driving to school with Benny Begin. He had a Bat Sherut whose father worked in archaeology with Benny Begin. And I went to it, there was a guy who was sitting Shiva that I knew, who was a Shaliach B'nai Akiva in Manchester, and he was sitting Shiva, and I was going to the Shiva in Petach Tikva, and Benny Begin walked out. He walked out. Oh. Wow. So I went into the Shiva, forgot to comfort him, and just asked him, what's Benny Begin doing in your house? You know, awkward Millstone. What's Benny Begin doing in your house? Forget everything else. What's Benny Begin doing in your house? So he says to me, Benny Begin went to school with my father. I said, but Benny Begin is not religious. Your father went to a religious school. He said, Ben Gurion didn't let anyone from the Irgun go to regular schools. He blackballed everyone. Anyone who was involved in the Irgun, Ben Gurion shut them out. He wouldn't even bring the bones of Jabotinsky to Israel to be buried. That was his hate for Begin and Beitar. There was a big friction between Begin and Ben Gurion. In 1967, when we got our backs against the wall, the Prime Minister is Levi Eshkol. Levi Eshkol becomes Prime Minister, he does two things. Number one, he invites Menachem Begin into the government. This is unheard of. This is the first time there is a united Jewish government in Israel since before the first Zionist Congress. A united Jewish government. Menachem Begin is in, Ben Gurion would have collapsed. He invites Begin, then he brings the bones of Jabotinsky to Har Herzl. I've actually been to the places in Europe where these people were originally buried. How can you ignore the fact that for the first time, almost in the history of our people, we were united, and then we got Yerushalayim. When we are united, we get Yerushalayim. When we are together, when we fight together, when we stand together, we get Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim is a madrega. Yerushalayim is, you have to be worthy of Yerushalayim. You have to be worthy of this place. There is no place like this. You should be pinching yourselves. I pinch myself. Not hard, because that would hurt me and then I'd have to go to Tehran. But I pinch myself on a regular basis to remind myself. My kids wrote to me, what are you doing today, Abba? So I wrote back, I said, I'm in the Rova, Mekabel Kahal. Come and meet me in my town. So my daughter wrote to me, Balabait Shel Yerushalayim. And then I wrote to her, Mi Chalamaz Bakita. It's a song, Shir HaChomot. Mi Chalamaz Bakita. Who would have dreamed when I was in school, if I was in school? Shelamanu Nedaklem Al Chomotayich, when we used to learn about Jerusalem. Shomrim Hafked Le'ircha, that's us. We are Shomrim Hafked Le'ircha. We are here. Shomrim Hafked Le'ircha. Kol hayom v'kol halayla. We are Shomrei Yerushalayim. This is our town. Wow. Doesn't matter where you go for the rest of your life, you will always have this year that this was yours. You were here. And you'll see as a climax to a northern hemisphere year comes, everyone's coming here. You'll see Shavuot morning. You go outside at 4:30 in the morning, you just see of Talesim coming from every direction to the Kotel. The most incredible thing. Everyone's coming here. And when they finish davening on Shavuot and all your friends are tired and they've got an hour's walk, you say, oh, I'm going to stay, I'll be in bed in a minute. You chose the wrong send, dear. You chose the wrong send. I'll be in bed in half an hour, just have a kid, I'm not walking anywhere, just go up the steps. Can I come? No, sorry. You can go wherever you want. Arba amot, matayim amot, elef amot. I'm just going to bed. This is your town! That's a big deal. Big deal. Big deal. Massive deal. Look at what Rav Amital spoke on. However much you think you won't, ladies, I'm telling you, you will miss you. You won't miss me as much as I miss you, but you will miss me because you're not going to be spoken to by a lunatic very often again in your life. And before they send me back to the place for the summer to calm down, your lecturers aren't going to do this. They're not going to do it in Columbia. Not in Barnard, not in NYU, not in Princeton. In Harvard, they're still learning how to spell genocide. They're not going to do anything. Maryland, I don't know what they're going to do. There's a lot of Mary in Maryland. A lot of Mary. But this is Yerushalayim. This is Yerushalayim. This is a mikveh. You're living in a mikveh. And this afternoon, you're going to take a flag and wave this flag. See what Rav Amital said. This was Tafshin Nun Bet. I got married Tafshin Nun Aleph. It's our wedding anniversary on Thursday night. I'm just saying it online so that everyone is witness to the fact that I remember. And I can work out the amount of years because I can work out between Tafshin Nun Aleph and Tafshin Pei Hey. That makes 34, which is an incredible achievement for a 25-year-old. Lifnei Shnat Tashach. Listen to what Rav Amital says. Bear with me. Yerushalayim was full of Jews in 1948. We had a lot of military successes in 1948. 1948 was an incredible time. But the war in Jerusalem failed. We lost Jerusalem. In 1948, we lost Jerusalem. I talk about Jerusalem as the old city, right? Not Western Jerusalem. It's hard for me not to see religious significance to the fact that we lost Jerusalem in 1948. Quoting Rav Amital, Amra lanu hashchina is as if God said to us, Terem b'moed, you're not ready for Yerushalayim. You're not ready, you have to be zocher for Yerushalayim. Adayin einachem ru'uyim l'shilton Yisraeli b'Yerushalayim shebein hachomot. You're not worthy to be ruling over Jerusalem inside the walls. Tisha esrei shana hitkayem shilton Yisraeli b'midinat Yisrael atzmaim. 19 years we had a country, v'lo hitkayem shilton Yisraeli b'Yerushalayim atika, and we did not have Yerushalayim. And the Rav Amital refers to a pasuk in Dvarim, v'teishvu b'kadesh yamim rabim ki yamim asher yashavtem. Rashi says, v'teishvu b'kadesh yamim rabim yutet shana. We sat in the Midbar of Kadesh for 19 years. Shene'emar ki yamim asher yashavtem b'shar masaot v'hem lamed ched. There were 38 years of travel, and it's like the years, half of those years we're in Kadesh. V'hem lamed ched shana yutet mehem asu b'kadesh v'yutet shana olchim. For 19 years we were walking in the desert without any kind of objective, with nowhere to go. We didn't move forward. For 19 years we had a country without Jerusalem. And out of the blue, it was mamash out of the blue. They didn't plan to conquer Jerusalem. It wasn't part of the plan. Things developed. If you really want to read it, you read about Menachem Begin listening to the BBC World Service at 5 o'clock in the morning, and then passing an order through to passing a request through to Yitzhak Rabin, who was at the time in the army, and to Levi Eshkol. On the eve of 1967, it looked like the country was going to fall apart. And there was incredible fear in Israel, in Chutz. If you ever read the English chief rabbi, not Rabbi Sachs, Rabbi Jacobovitz, he wrote a book called If Only My People. And he describes in that book that they had gatherings in England before the war in 1967 where people were taking jewelry off their fingers to donate to Israel. The situation was so bad, people were taking the jewelry off their fingers, necklaces off their necks, and handing them in as donations. That's how bad it was. After only 3 hours of war, the entire Air Force, Egyptian Air Force, was destroyed. And on the third day of the war, today, this day, and without intention, we find ourselves standing on Har HaBayit, and by the Kotel. There is a big difference between Yom Yerushalayim and Yom HaAtzmaut. The Midrash tells a story of Vikuach ben Mitzvot HaShabbat and Mitzvot Brit Milah. There's an argument that takes place between the mitzvah of Shabbos and the mitzvah of Brit Milah. And each mitzvah says they're more important than the other. Shabbos says I'm more important, Brit Milah says I'm more important. Here's the Midrash. Shabbat and Milah are talking to each other. Obviously there's a message in the Midrash. I'm greater than you because God rested on my day, so I'm greater than you. The Brit Milah said the world wouldn't be created without me. That's what Brit Milah says. אמר רבי יהודה בר שלום, משל לשתי מטרונות שהיו עומדות ולא היה אדם יודע ליתן לב להפריש איזו גדול מחברתה. Like two rulers standing with each other and they cannot discern who is the greater ruler. כיוון שהעביר אחד מלפני חברתה, ידוע כל שעברה מלפני חברתה היא הקטנה. When one supersedes the other, you know that the one is more important. So what's the explanation? Brit Milah is doche Shabbat. Right? If you have to do a Brit Milah on Shabbat, you can do a Brit Milah on Shabbat, which means Brit Milah is more important than Shabbat. אנו יודעים שהמילה גדולה משבת. Over the page. על משקל הוויכוח הזה התעוררה מחלוקת בין הרבנים. There was a discussion between religious Zionist rabbis. האם יום העצמאות חשוב יותר מיום ירושלים? What's more important, יום העצמאות or יום ירושלים? Of course, you can't have יום ירושלים without יום העצמאות. You need to have a country to get Yerushalayim. Or להפך, כי ידוע הרבנות קבע, but you should know that across the board, the Rabbanut was kovea to say Hallel with the bracha on Yom Yerushalayim. Not everyone agreed to say on Yom HaAtzmaut, but the Rabbanut said that Yom Yerushalayim, everyone says Hallel with a bracha. Long time ago. Ach lo kavah davar domeh legam Yom HaAtzmaut, there was more machloket. And now he tries to explain. Hamedina hukma b'shnat tashach. Our country was established in 1948. B'siyua mesuyam u'b'tmicha shel umot ha'olam, with certain help from the nations of the world, not from the British, but from other nations in the world. The British took our guns and they gave them to Arabs. That's what the British did in 1948. And now they speak morality to us. Mr. Lamy, Shami Lamy. He's talking to me about morality, this man. They took our guns. They went to kibbutzim and took our guns, and they left us to fight the Arabs with nothing. That's what the British did. That's what the British did. Rule Britannia. The rest of the world, they recognized our right for a country. They're still angry about the mandate. They had guilt from the Shoah, so they were prepared to help us create a state. But not in the Six-Day War. The Six-Day War, we did it on our own. We mamish did it on our own. We fought this war on our own, with no support from the world at all. With no support from the world at all. And history repeats itself. If you want to ever know, ladies, when we're doing well militarily, it's when the rest of the world wants us to have a ceasefire. I didn't hear anyone talk about a ceasefire on October the 7th. I didn't hear anyone talk about it at all. It took them like a year to recognize that rape is asur when you do it to a Jewish woman. It took them a year to recognize that. And the Queen of Jordan said it never happened. When they say nothing, you know we're in trouble. When they tell us to do a ceasefire, you know we're doing okay. So let them keep shouting and screaming. The French, the English, they don't shout and scream as much as they want to shout and scream. We don't have to go too far back to understand what Vichy France did to the Jewish people, how they sent their French citizens to Auschwitz. French people they sent to Auschwitz, and they had to go to Drancy, separated them from their kids. Kids were on their own for months because their parents were already gassed, until the French could convince Hitler that kids were worth gassing too. They're going to talk morality to me? We were on our own, and we got Yerushalayim on our own. But to get Yerushalayim, we have to be of the Madrega to be worthy of Yerushalayim. And as I've said to you so many times before, we are our own worst enemy. Not being one is the only thing that will destroy the Jewish people. The rhetoric is so difficult. It's so difficult. But when they talk to me in Chutzlaritz, they say, we don't argue like that in Chutzlaritz. I say, of course you don't argue like that in Chutzlaritz. You've got nothing to argue about. When I lived in Edgware, and there was a reform shul in Edgware, we never argued because we didn't have one government, and we didn't have one police force, we didn't have one army. We're living together after 2,000 years, and there are a lot of different issues that need to be thrashed out. They need to be thrashed out in a way that's worthy of human beings, and not with antagonism and ego and intolerance. And we're here to celebrate Yerushalayim, which is the motor of the Jewish people. I hope you will, this afternoon, be able to value wherever you may be going. I tell you, you're not going anywhere, but wherever you may be going, to value the enormous zechut, with all the issues that come with it, living in an old city with the drainage and the damp. And someone once said to me, why don't you move out the Rova and go to a place which is more modern? And I said, the day we move out the Rova is the day I retire. Not leaving the Rova. Last man standing. Not leaving the Rova. The Rova is all the difficulties, all the noise, all the whatever it is, the juice. It's worth it for the zechut to be in this place. And rub your eyes, realize that this was not a given. As I've said to you so many times, you go back in time and go meet someone as they're liberated in Bergen-Belsen or Auschwitz-Birkenau, Buchenwald, and say, I come from Jerusalem, and Jerusalem is my home. And you know what? There's an army in Jerusalem, and there's a government in Jerusalem. And I don't know, 30-40% of the Knesset wear kippot. And the guy will say, get out of here, you're delirious. And that's what it is. We have to remind ourselves, it's an incredible zechut. At this wedding last night, I just get so, I can't dance with boys. I want to set an example for you. But I can't dance with them because I told my wife, she said, well, why don't you get involved in the dancing? I said, it's like going into Gaza, like they're pushing and shoving, jumping up and down. All these chevra just come out of Gaza, right? They're wet. You've got to marry them, not me. And I'm watching these boys dancing, and half of them were Chiloni. I was like crying. They're like incredible role models. They're just incredible role models. And they're singing all the songs, you know, and all the Jewish songs they're singing, chanting in a good army way, screaming it out. I didn't even get there for, you know, Hashem Yitbarach. They didn't get there. I had to leave. It was 2 hours away. It's in Chadera. It's a long way. So I left before they did that. But it's an incredible group of people, incredible zechut to be part of these people. And I mentioned to someone there last night, I remember once going to a wedding where Rav Lichtenstein, he was already, must have been 60, 70, and it was Matkal, commandos. And they all took their shirts off and they were all dancing without shirts. And Rav Lichtenstein was in the middle. His mum was in the middle, he was dancing. He's in the middle. And I think I go in there, you're going to have to call mother. You know, I ain't going in there, I'll be with the old, I've always been for the last 20 years with the old men on the side, those little circles. When I went to that Six Flags place in America, I went on the teacup ride. Scary, it took me a while to calm down after that. Incredible zechut. You have to, I've said it to you before in different contexts, have to keep your eyes open, ladies. It might be hot, whatever you drink, you cover your heads. You don't miss this. You can't miss this for the world. This is my Yom Yerushalayim, my first Yom Yerushalayim in Yeshiva. They didn't do a Rikud Galim, but we danced from Merkaz Harav at about 1 o'clock in the morning to daven here at the Kotel, and it's engraved on my soul. And the Yom Yerushalayim before our wedding, where there was a Rikud Galim, and I found my Chanichim in Yerushalayim, and they put me on their shoulders, and I was riding, waving my flag, but I'll share it with you. Okay, so let's finish. I'm sure Rav Yonatan told you the history. I hope you were listening when he told you. In 1967, just before Yom HaAtzmaut, they had a competition to write a song about Jerusalem. You aware of this story? And Naomi Shemer wrote this song, but without the last verse. And she added the last verse after we got Jerusalem. It's like Ruach HaKodesh, really incredible. Mamash, 3-4 weeks before the war, she wrote a song about Yerushalayim. Rav Tzvi Yehuda Kook stood up in his speech on Yom HaAtzmaut, 1967, and he said, what about Hebron, what about Yerushalayim? And most incredible thing. So, I know you know the song because Rav Yonatan texted it to you last night. That statement makes no sense at all. It doesn't mean you know the song. I could text you a Zohar. It doesn't mean you know Zohar. But you do know the song. Khomeini. One of my proudest moments in Midrash Harova was about, it was the year after Corona, the year of Corona. Was one of you here that year? I don't remember. And Hamas wanted to make a point, so in the middle of Rikud Galim, they sent a missile over. And all the girls were in the middle of Jerusalem, the siren went off. And I was still here, we gathered the girls back to the Midrashah to count heads. But then my girls went down to the Kotel and they danced for the rest of the day. Harova was at the Kotel. Ambassadors to the Kotel. Everyone else ran away. We were there. We'll always be here. So, Evie, you ready to lead this one? Abir Harim Sakayayim Bereach Horavim Misa Beruach Habayim Im Kol Ha'avonim Ubetai Matilam Ba'eresh Shvuya B'chaloma
Yerushalayim shel zahav v'shel nechoshet v'shel or halo lechol shirayich ani kinor. Yerushalayim shel zahav v'shel nechoshet v'shel or halo lechol shirayich ani kinor.
Ach beroi hayom nashir lach velach litshor tarim kartoti mitzeir banaich umeacharon המשוררים ישמך צורבת השפתיים כנשיקת שרה אם אשכחך ירושלים אשר גוזר. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור הלא לכל שירייך אני כינור. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור הלא לכל שירייך אני כינור. חזרנו אל בורות המים לשוב ולכיכר שופר קורא בהר הבית העיר העתיקה ובנהרות אשר בסלע אלפי שמשות זוהרות נשוב נרד אל ים המלח בדרך יריחו. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור הלא לכל שירייך אני כינור. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור הלא לכל שירייך אני כינור. Just one final thing. When the flag dance takes place, every year there are a group of people, normally men, who go through Shar Shechem and start smacking on the doors of the shuk. We don't do that. We don't go through Shar Shechem, we come through Shar Zion, we come through Shar Yafa, whichever way you want to come. But we're celebrating our Jerusalem, we're not attacking other people or making derogatory commands, regard. We're not doing that. We just dance with our people through Shar Yafa is the best way to do it. And sometimes, like Dr. Yocheved says, there's a lot of people here, so they hold people back from coming in, but not for long. They just close. They have policemen, then they stop them. Depends on the year. And if you can't get in with your piece of paper, if you've still got it, then just hang around. They'll let you in. But and just enjoy. Fantastic day. But please, everyone to the Cheder Ochel. Where